Well, hey guys, welcome to Bow Hunting Soul. Okay, small game hunting today with the grizzly. I'm bundled up. It's cold, man. I mean, I got layers upon layers underneath here. It's like, I don't know, it's pretty cold. It's like 6-7 degrees or something like that today. Already made a couple videos today, so you've probably seen it. It's probably all on the same day, but anyway, I want to do a video about, it's late season. I love small game hunting. I'm squirrel hunting today. Haven't seen a single squirrel. They're probably smarter than I am because they're probably hunkered up inside us. There's all kinds of nests around here. It's an area that I used to hunt a lot. Don't come out here very often anymore. Thought I'd kind of take my chances, you know, midday, maybe they're out kind of getting the sun or whatever. So there's still hope, but till then I'm bundled up. A couple things though. So variety of bows, right? Now you might have different opinions on this. There's a group that says, you know, only shoot one bow. You can shoot it well. Shoot only that bow all year round. You get used to the trajectory, how you shoot it, the way it shoots in your hand, if it torques, doesn't torque, whatever. Me, I'm okay switching bows. I'm equally as good or equally as bad with the variety of bows that I shoot. One thing that I wanted to talk about that some people may realize or they don't realize is, number one, before we get into broadheads and points and all that stuff, is I tend to shoot a lot of longbows, right? I've got my Elkhart, I got those ASLs, but with those ones, you tend to, you know, to kind of choke up on the grip a lot more, right? It's cold today. Now, excuse me, you might like shooting with a glove, without shooting with a glove, but sometimes when you're walking around with this and you need to take a quick shot, I need to have my gloves on, sorry. Now, you can't do much about your tab. Can't do much about, you know, this gloved hand. You can kind of walk around, you know, within your pocket or something like that, you know what I mean? But if you look over here, okay, if you look over here, you've got this pistol grip, okay, and it actually puts the shelf a little bit higher, okay, puts the shelf a little bit higher than your palm. Now, typically, the lower that bore line is, basically, typically the lower that is, the more natural a shot it's going to be. That's why ASLs are so good with that. That's why any other bow that doesn't have, you know, doesn't have like too much distance between like your finger when you grip it and the actual shelf itself, it's actually lower to your hand. So when you point, it's a little more natural. But when it comes time for late season, and it's in February right now, and you're dealing with, you know, gloves and such, you might have interference issues. I'm gonna back up a sec here. I'm gonna tangle up in some stuff, right? So here's your, if you can see that very well, okay? See how that I got clearance over there, even though I got gloves, and when you squeeze a glove, of course, it puffs out a little bit, right? You know, it gets kind of fatter, gets fatter in here, you kind of do one of these, okay? So if I were to do this with my Elkhart, even though Elkhart has a little bit of a rise there, and if I were to do this with my ASLs, okay, I'm not okay with the arrow riding on my finger. Some people like to feel that. I always get weird arrow flight. I like it to not touch, you know, any part of my hand or anything like that. So it's just something to think about. If you're going to be out small game hunting, especially late season in you know, the Great White North up here, okay, something like this where you're going to have clearance, for your feathers as they go by. They're not going to bounce off your hand. And the arrow shaft itself, look at that little bit of clearance, right? That little bit may help. Now, some of you may not like shooting with a fat glove like this. It depends on the bow. It doesn't really affect me with this one. So I actually like to take this one when I go small game hunting, just because of that reason. It's a small reason. It may sound stupid. This is annoying me. It may sound stupid, but it's definitely a factor. I can have this hand gloved and stay gloved, and then this hand can stay in my pocket, you know, the rest of the time we're walking around or whatnot, and then I can just pull it out and then do that. So that's one thing. Other thing, tips, small game heads, right? I typically will shoot broadheads. I typically will shoot old broadheads or ones that I stump shoot with. Mostly I hunt squirrels, okay? Taking rabbits. Rabbits are easy to kill. I've always kind of joked that if you look at a rabbit like with a mean enough look, they'll die on the spot, skin themselves and put themselves in your pack, right? Squirrels are hard to kill. I've had arrows bounce off of, I've had these bounce off of squirrels. So typically, I will shoot a broadhead for squirrels. You need the penetration, you need to poke into their body, and you need to kill them. Now, blunt force trauma kind of works, but I've shot these out of compounds, okay, and they work. This I happen to, I just have a whole set of these made up, and I want to come out here, do a little bit of stump shooting, but also a little bit of small game. These will work a close range, okay. There's not that they're not going to work, but they're not optimum. I just didn't have any broadheads made up for these arrows. So I just have a whole quiver full of these. But these are the hex small game heads. Ace makes them, right? Ace hex heads, I think, yeah. They're steel, and they do two things. They are kind of barbed, not barbed, but they got the crenellated, I guess is the word, right? They got those little tiny points on there, so they will pierce if you're close enough. They will. I mean, don't get me wrong. They will put the hurt on something. Okay. My preference, though, especially with squirrels, is a broadhead. Okay, so that's number one. But that's it's a good head. It's also a good head to kind of stump with. Not as good though as a Judo. Now, typically, I haven't been a Judo fan until recently, and for some reason, they hadn't flown well for me. And I'm like, I'm going to give them another chance. I probably had poorly tuned arrows at the time, so now I'm actually shooting these. The glue-on ones are 135 grain, and man, I'm loving them. They're billed as the unlosable head, basically, right? Because they got the wires on there, right? So the wires, when it hits the ground, it doesn't just like necessarily just grab the ground, but I mean, these hook on the ground, and that makes the arrow tumble, but it also like dissipates a lot of the energy. A lot of times you'll have with arrows is they'll go down, especially with broadheads, or especially with field points, is it'll hit, and then if the ground is not frozen like this, it'll go subterranean. It'll submerge, right? It'll just do it, and forget it. They go into another dimension. You never find them. Sometimes if the ground is frozen like this, they'll hit and they go boing, and they shoot off into God knows where, and they go way farther. And for some reason, unless you're recording it, they never go in the direction that you thought they went. It's maybe you're more observant than I am. Like, oh yeah, it hit and skipped off this way. And if I do find it, it's like 30 yards that way instead of that way. I don't know, whatever. But the point of these is, to stump with. They're fun to shoot. These, in my opinion, are not small game heads, okay? These, especially, it's a small enough point on there and you can get that blunt force, trauma kind of thing. But these prevent penetration, number one. Number two, I don't think they provide enough trauma to kill a squirrel. Maybe a rabbit, but you won't get the penetration because of those claws. Okay, so this is not something that I consider a small game. Some people do, and some people say, oh yeah, small game head, judos, blah blah blah. I don't consider judos to be small game heads. I consider those to be something you just go and stump shoot with, so you don't lose your arrow. They work fantastic for that. They do, they hit, and then they don't go too far, and you can find them. More importantly, they don't submerge themselves under the ground. It's very, very useful for that. So that's why the only reason I use them is for stump shooting, right? But otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's either these or broadheads. There's other small game ones out there. There's like the rubber blunts. Never had good luck with the rubber blunts. Even out of a compound, the rubber blunts, I've literally had them bounce off of a squirrel, and the squirrel run up a tree or go down a hole, and they're just fine. Squirrels are incredibly, incredibly tough. Again, I've joked in the past, if squirrels were like, I don't know, any bigger or the size of dogs or something like that, humanity would be in trouble because they'd be impossible to kill. We'd all be in trouble. So it's these, if you hit them right, or broadheads. Anyway, just a little bit of small game kind of knowledge there, just from experience. I typically don't have a lot of stuff to offer on big game, unfortunately. So you never see me sit here and say, oh, this broadhead is this broadhead is that. Haven't killed a lot of big stuff, right? But I am going to say that I have killed a lot of squirrels and a lot of rabbits, and I do have a lot of experience with small game, and I'm telling you from experience that it's these broadheads number one, then these. Don't use the judos. Judos are for practice. Anyway, I'm gonna keep walking around because I'm kind of cold just standing here making a video. When I'm walking around, it's not too bad, but otherwise I'm kind of frozen. And hey, just to illustrate what I'm saying, this hand, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of turning red because it's exposed out here. This one nice and warm. That's why I like having a gloved hand on a bow that I can shoot in the winter, right? Versus something that has a grip up here where I might not shoot as accurately. Anyway, all right, that's it. Let me know, are you guys small game hunters? Do you go chase them with a bow? And if you do you do anything different? Do you set up your bows any different? Do you set up your equipment any different? Arm guards or anything like that, because the bulk of your clothing, any of that. So leave a comment below, I'd love to know. All right, thanks guys, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and happy rest of winter. Stay warm.